get back.
So is Houston TV associated with the university or with the city of Houston?
No, with the city of Houston.
Okay.
And so I've already started the camera. So
All right.
give me just a pause.
All right.
Hello, welcome back to God Family Politics. I'm your host, Dr. Tyra Hodge. Today, I'm very excited to have Alan Parker in the house with me. We're gonna talk about what's going on in Texas education, and because I've been out of the loop a little bit, even though I work in public education, but I've been out of the loop with the things that we've been working on in Austin.
Well, I love the name of your program. It's an honor to be on it. Talk about God, politics, and
Everything. God, family, politics, my favorite things.
And those are three of the most important things,
Man.
But keeping God first.
Keeping God first, absolutely.
Yes.
So thank you for visiting with me. What's going on in Texas?
Well, we are about ready, I believe, in this session of the Texas legislature to get a very well-established beginning to universal school choice.
Wow.
And they're calling it universal school choice, and it's going to be the biggest program that's been rolled out in any state at the beginning, and everyone will be eligible to get in it. And the talk is that they're going to spend $1 billion on it the first year.
But school districts, like myself, that makes us very nervous when not all the time, but sometimes we don't have enough money, like in the important allotments, right? And so that makes a lot of people very nervous when it comes to choice in education. But as you know, I believe it's my child. I had that child, so it should be my choice in how their education is formulated. And so, is there any ease that we can put to the mind of educators?
Yes, absolutely. The governor, I was with the governor on February 17th. He did a big public announcement in my hometown, San Antonio. All the media was there. It was not a private meeting. He said this to everybody. They're going to give teacher pay raises, and they're going to spend more money on education than Texas has ever spent before in our history.
Wow.
So they're increasing the funding for public schools. Now, and the public school money comes from a bucket called the Public
These
School
are really
Fund.
good.
Okay.
Um,
So the foundation school program. So that money is allocated to the schools. And the governor says, we're not touching that at all. We're
Okay.
not taking money from public schools. There's also general funds in the budget, money from other things. And that's where this money is going to come. And $1 billion sounds like a lot, but that's nothing compared to the
Right.
Texas education budget.
Really?
It really isn't. But anyway, even if you think of it a lot as money, it's not coming out of public schools,
Okay.
which I understand the concern. We want all public schools to do well. We want all schools to do well. But this money, in some states, the money has actually followed the child to the school of the parent's choice, so that it really is coming from the school's budget. But here it's just going to stay in the money, in the school choice foundation school program is the name of it, and it'll percolate. Now, we also have almost 100,000 children coming into Texas every year. We're one of the fastest growing.
They're in Colony Ridge over there.
Yes,
that's where they're at.
Yes, now that's
they're
right.
in my school district.
Now, some of the school districts are losing children just to other suburbs or other places. Like in San Antonio, the inner city school district is losing students, not because of this new school choice program, but because people have a choice where to live and where to go to school. And right now, I was listening to a professor who studied this issue from University of Texas, San Antonio. We actually have a very bad problem right now because we concentrate low-income students in bad schools.
Right.
If you're wealthy, you can afford to buy a home in a nice neighborhood.
Right.
So what we're doing, and this program is actually concentrated on low-income children. I think about 80% of the money will go first to children who are at or near the poverty level.
Okay,
So it's
good.
allocated for low income children. It's not
Okay.
the people who can afford school choice and buy a home in Westlake in Austin or something.
Right.
You probably know the neighborhoods where the
Right.
expense, if it's a
Right.
million, $2 million home, you're going to get a little bit better education.
Hmm.
Uh, though I think often, well, I won't say that too much. I think often that's because the parents who care about the education the most have selected that school because it's a better school.
Right.
That's a contributing factor to a good school anywhere. And what the charter schools have demonstrated, these are the same arguments that were made against open enrollment charter schools.
Mhm.
And I was selected by the State Board of Education of Texas to be on the open enrollment charter school evaluation committee.
Mhm.
And I argued for charter schools, this was 1995. We created a new kind of public school. It was funded by government money,
Okay.
but they got, instead of getting tax money, they got per pupil spending for however many children they attracted to voluntarily come to the school.
Okay.
And let's use a figure like 10,000. That's kind of a nice round number that's easy to do math, and it's close. Uh, in fact, this school choice program called SB2 in the Senate and HB2 in the House, the Education Savings Act. If you have a special needs child, you'll get 12,500. But if you have a regular education student, you'll get 10,000. So again, there's a recognition that a high needs child may need special supplementation. So, but this is, you'll get that money put into an education savings account for you. And that doesn't mean that you have to put the money in first. Under health savings account, you get to put your money in, then you take it out.
Yeah.
No, this is the state funded share of education.
Okay.
And I got into this in 1991. I became a professor of education law because I
Okay.
represented public school districts
Okay.
the first 7 years of my practice. In fact, as a professional educator, you'll know I got out of school in 1979, law school, and I went to a public school, and they handed me a law, the Education of All Children, All Handicapped Children Act.
Mhm.
And the senior lawyer said, if you read this, you'll be as much as an expert as anybody in the country. Because it was a brand new law, and it was the special ed law that
Right.
created ARDs,
Mhm.
individual education plans, all that. And it introduced a new concept that you could get due process to try to make the school give you a better right.
Mhm.
Now, I always say, there are educational heroes in the public schools.
There is.
And when people said, where will charter schools come from? They don't have any tax money. They can't pass a bond issue. Where are they going to come from? And I said, educational heroes will create them.
Mhm.
There are people already in the public school system who can look around and say, this is not right. I can do better than this. For example, African American legislators who can look in Fort Worth ISD and see that only 13% of African American boys are reading at grade level
Wow.
after being in the public school for 3 years.
Mm.
I mean, I don't care how bad the home is. You need to restructure your school to meet those children's needs.
Right.
If they don't have if there's some deficit at home, you put in your school program. And I said, that's who'll create them. And that's actually what happened. And I said, it might be that a family needs a school from 6 in the morning to 6 at night.
Mhm.
But we don't want to mandate that for every family.
Right.
But if
Right.
a family needs preschool care and after school care, we've had people have wanted to try to get that everywhere all at once.
Mm.
You can't do that. Give it to the kids that need it.
Right.
And then some families would rebel. I don't want to give my child away from 6 to 6. That's 12 hours a day.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, if you're working hard and you need money and you have to work, and
Yes.
then providing a good quality pre and post daycare program
But
is
in
good.
some aspects, I've seen that the parent thinks the school is the child is the school's responsibility, and there, I kind of have issues only because as an educator who's had to have surgery behind injuries from students,
You were
and
assaulted.
yes,
Yes.
but
Okay.
but they had that special code,
Okay.
SPED,
Mhm.
and so Therefore, in a general ed situation, you may not get to see that student again for sometimes, but in a sped situation, you have to see your abuser every single day. And so you tell me, and I've been down in Austin, and the lawmakers have said, well, that's their job, and that's what they signed up for. Really? So we're going to tell a battered wife that you made your bed, now lay in it, so you get to be abused for the rest of your life. And so I know this was totally a topic I just sprung on you, but this is where we are. So we have teachers now that have psychological issues
Yes.
from being abused daily, repeatedly, all day long sometimes, and then it goes on for years. So what happens to that teacher? I can tell you, because I find myself in that situation.
This is why
And
many are
so
leaving the profession.
this is why many are leaving the profession. I understand protections, for students with disabilities, but our human rights kind of go out the window when a teacher has to be subjected, and you can't tell me that's their job.
No.
Not at that, because
But it's the only job they have under a government-controlled monopoly school system.
yes.
So school choice allows new kinds of schools to be developed. And this is the problem between a government-controlled monopoly system and a free system. So charter school created educational heroes who could see those special needs students and say, I can meet that need. And then they created a school, but no child was forced by law to go there. They had to voluntarily attract them. So I say to teachers, imagine a school where every child is there because either they, the child, or their parents want them there. That changes the whole atmosphere of a school.
Right.
And so you can maybe do different things. And on special ed, some children do well with mainstreaming, but some need special care.
They do.
But we have the one size fits all. Everybody must be mainstreamed in public ed. We just fought. We create both kinds of schools and let the heroes do it. So, but what you got, the legislature passed a law that said that's not supposed to happen to you. You have the right to you have the right to remove unruly children as a teacher.
As long as they're not sped.
Well, and as long as the principal then doesn't say, unable to control our classroom, bad teacher, bad teacher.
And that's what's happening.
Exactly. So
that's what's happening.
And you don't have another school to go to.
No. And
but imagine a school system where there's 500 new schools created in the town. A city like Houston should have thousands and thousands of schools. But they would also then probably generate the kind of schools that do really well, would attract more people and grow voluntarily over time. What happens in the public school system, this is why we have fads in public education, because it's government-controlled monopoly. We got a problem with special ed children. We're not teaching them very well. And so then we try to do things like, well, we're not going to discipline them or all this. But what allowing school choice allows you to do is those that would benefit from that kind of program can grow there, and those that don't can go somewhere else. And the more schools there are, the higher teacher pay will be, because one of the most important factors to good education is a good teacher.
Yes.
And so, but if there's only one school district or two or three near you where you can get a job, that's it. Whereas if you were a doctor, you can provide your services anywhere you want. I'll tell you, there's a bill up. Well, I believe in professional academies. I've written a bill like this, and it's been introduced this session. I'm not a member of the legislature. I'm a professor and lawyer and family advocate now. I advocate for teachers. I believe if you've been a public school educator for 5 years, then you should be able to get a professional academy charter automatically, if you assuming you've had good evaluations for 5 years. And then all you have to do is present a business plan. What is it? What kind of school are you going to create? And then you go to a bank and you get a line of credit. Now that sounds like a lot, but it's not. That's what charter schools had to do. They don't get tax data.
They don't.
They if someone doesn't show up, they don't get paid. But that's how it is at bakeries, good grocery stores. And I want to go back to the poor parent or an uninformed parent or an uncaring parent. Now, those doesn't mean they're not ignorant. I'm not using those terms. But someone who's got too much on their plate, they can barely handle the child.
Right.
I'm just going to leave it to the school. School choice and educational expansion of schools protects the uninformed consumer. I'll use the bully problem. We have a huge bully problem. You were bullied. If the teachers feel unsafe, imagine how the children feel. And hundreds of thousands of kids cry before they go to school. Okay, if there's a girl who's being raped or threatened, she said, Mama, I don't feel safe. And they can take her and her $10,000 and put them in another school. If she's the only one, her life is immeasurably better, and nothing happens at the bad school. But let's assume she's not the only one, and another one starts leaving, and another one. Well, administrators will eventually say, why are you leaving?
Right.
My child's not safe. My child's not safe. And as a former school lawyer, to discipline the child today requires a fairly large expenditure of resources and willpower and alternative resources to discipline one kid. So what do? We keep him in place, we don't do much, and we let everybody suffer. Teachers suffer from that, and children around them suffer. So why are only 30 or 40% of the kids reading at grade level? Because you got an uncontrollable school. If they're going to assault the teacher, and the principal doesn't back you up. Now that's SPED, and that's special public education.
And
but,
another
but
thing,
they
get smaller stipends than people teaching reading or teaching math and science, and that's not right.
But you could go through an ARD and try to rediscipline. And if they assault a teacher, in my book, that's a good grounds for modification of proposal, because you don't want them going out and assaulting people in life, or they're going to end up in jail. We've got to change behavior. We have to teach people how to behave in school as well as learn. You have to learn enough to take care of yourself. The purpose of public education is a general diffusion of knowledge. And in 1995, the Texas Supreme Court said, Texas currently provides education through districts and a state agency. That's all there was. But the Court of Texas said, however, there's nothing in the Constitution of Texas that requires it to be done that way. As long as there's a general diffusion of knowledge, then the state can provide any means. And that's when charter schools began to grow. And in a way, they made public schools change. Once other people get a choice, like a magnet school or something, then public schools said, oh, we can do that. We'll start a magnet school. Like for STEM education, or for arts and science. It's okay to specialize in education. We don't have to have one size fit all, but we do have to have a place for every child. And if the child is so disruptive that what he needs is a disciplinary school, then we don't need every school to have to be a disciplinary school. We got to build some for them and get them there. And then hopefully they graduate out of that and they're back for a regular classroom. But everybody else can't be sacrificed like you and the other students. So you've identified a real problem, and it's why a lot of people are leaving the profession. But I believe that school choice gives teachers so much more opportunity. They're able to create a school. And in fact, what do people, after about 5 years, a lot of people leave the teaching profession because some heroes, I call them, come in and say, I'm here to help children. I want to do good. I want to change lives. And then they just hit this bureaucratic wall, and eventually they just give up and go do something else because they're smart people. They could earn better jobs someplace. But if you're a teacher and you got to have that certificate, there's only 2 places in town or 1 in smaller towns, then you're it. But I think that teachers should be treated like doctors or lawyers and be given a professional license, but with no mandatory control to make people come to your school. That's part of the problem in public school. And even, this is why there's fads in education. Say we've got the African American problem of black children, males particularly, only 13% able to read at 3rd grade. That's Fort Worth ISD. May have gone up a little bit, but it's, and so if someone starts a new school and says, we're going to have an Afrocentric curriculum and we're going to meet for 8 to 10 hours, well, that's voluntarily. They may cut out some part of the program to focus more or to pay the teachers to stay a little later. Obviously, teachers should get more pay if they're working hard. But then no parent should be forced to go there because the parent may disagree. And what happens in public schools, you'll get a great reading program because reading is always a problem. You'd think discipline is a problem, so you have discipline problems. So it'll work in one place, usually because a hero has started it,
Right.
got everybody else to buy in around it. They're kind of a charismatic leader, and everybody's on board. So it works.
Right.
Then Superintendent B says, they did good. I'm going to do that here. And he adopts the problem from the top down. Half the people say, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The way we were doing was fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change. I've learned here. I've been here 20 years. So that's just human nature.
Right.
And so it suddenly, what worked there doesn't work as well. That's a problem with human management. But when I want to go back to the bully. So anyway, in the school where 10 children leave,
Right.
and they took $100,000 in a sense with them,
that.
10 times 10, then they'll start saying, what do we do to handle the bully? And they might do like a Philadelphia school, inner city school. They got big dads to wear T-shirts that said "Dad's on patrol."
Oh yeah.
And it calmed things down. No, they didn't have guns. They weren't beating the kids, but they were bigger than the kids.
Yeah.
And hey, cut that out, whatever. And that helped. But that's what we've got to have, innovation. We need
so
more
I
good
have
schools.
one more. I have one more. I don't think it's really a question, but it's more of a what can help. So we have the opioid crisis, and it's funny because probably 5 years ago I thought that was made up. I thought it was a myth until it hit our school district, right? And then realizing that our school district was housing a whole bunch of the problems, and not our school system, but just the neighborhood. Having the fastest growing neighborhood in the United States came with its own things. And so you'll have some people say, oh, that's not really happening over there, but as an educator, it was really happening over there. So what about our kids that really no faults of their own, by accident in some cases, they have become fully physically addicted to narcotics and the opioid? What about somebody that, and there's a couple, there's not many of these type of schools in the Houston area. It's really only one. Archway Academy does a great job in Houston. But when you're talking about, an hour out from Houston, and you have this problem in that what used to be a rural area is a fast growing area, and you have a whole bunch, about 150 kids possibly addicted to this drug. How can we build a school system for them like Archway? What could a person do? Because I polled these kids, 90% of 150 said if they could go to a sober high school, they would, where no drugs, no nothing. They focused on their sobriety and getting better. How do we help that type of family?
Well, the education savings account will actually allow that to happen.
Okay.
Because it can be paid for both education related expenses, like to control the addiction or therapies, as well as the education itself. So the education savings account gives a lot of flexibility. By the way, if you want to homeschool your child, which may be necessary to get them away from other kids that are on drugs and selling them to each other, you can get $2,500 to homeschool your child, which would buy curriculum. So when it gets up to where there's 150, the school system should do something, and they can create. I was going to say,
and definitely we have, and we've been at the forefront.
Right.
And I don't want to say the school district, but we've actually been the leader in the nation of everything that we've done. And so my superintendent hit it. I was a part of the committee, and a lot of the things we did, I was help bring in all these things into the school district, and so to help in pulling in partners and everything. And so
if money followed the child, other people could start the kind of schools and copy you, just like any product that does well gets copied. And even the lower performing schools would start, if their funding would start funneling to you. But does your public school accept children from other districts?
I
Most do
mean,
not.
right. And
Yes.
so there's, if they're coming with the parent, or if they're coming, but we're hoping that a parent is bringing a non-problem to the school
Well,
district.
often,
But
and right now in Texas, parents are lying about where they live because
oh
they want to
yeah,
try to get in a better district.
mm-hmm.
Uh, and even if it's a perfectly good school, but your child's kind of under assault, it's a bad environment.
Mm-hmm.
The beautiful thing about choice is it's not is public school better than private school. There are great public schools, great private schools. Unfortunately, there are bad public schools and there are bad private schools.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes private schools go out of business, but bad public schools go on forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but we need to create alternatives and allow the children the flexibility through their
Right.
parents. It's the parents' choice,
Right.
though older children would be heavily involved in it, obviously. But and we need to create a bigger supply of good schools. If
Right.
you want to start a charter school to deal with create a sober high school, you got to get approved by the State Board of Education.
Yeah, and I heard that's a doozy. I have a friend, you probably know, Melissa Martin, and so I know that she was able to get hers up and going, but I think it took some time, and I know it's not that easy.
There are hundreds of thousands of children waiting on waiting lists to get into the better schools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you every parent going back to the okay, so the uninformed parent, one girl is bullied, then another boy is bullied, girls are bullied, people start leaving, and suddenly the local school fixes the problem, change it, maybe puts locks on the door, big men, maybe more security, maybe a discipline program,
Mm-hmm.
but suddenly it's better. And things have improved for the uninformed parent who never even knew there was a bully problem at the school,
Mm-hmm.
because they have to respond to the informed consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Why do cell phones get better? I don't buy them until they've been out for 3 or 4 years and all the bugs. But some people want the most recent
Right.
one, all that. And so if it gets better, eventually everybody will have one. I'll say, well, I'll get one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But schools can improve that way. Parents don't have to know. You don't have to know how to drive. You don't know how to build a car to know which one drives and which one doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
which one clunks and which one moves
Right.
smoothly. So parents would get this program is supposed to give some report cards on how the school is doing, a little bit of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I know report cards on everything, but if your child is afraid to go to school, that's a pretty bad indicator that it's a bad school. And you were afraid. I mean, I thank you for being courageous about that. And as someone in the system a long time, I've heard this from teachers, and the principals often don't back up the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if people started leaving, the principals would say, we're going to get this fixed.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, what did we do with low reading? George Bush had to have $300 million for a new reading program. You'd think that reading was a basic function of schools.
Yeah.
So then Rick Perry gets elected. He had $300 million for a math program. So then we get the fads through the system. We're going to focus on reading this year, even if it's good at your school. Nope, now we're going to focus on math. New guy comes in, new woman comes in. We got to
Let's do
fix
writing.
this problem. Yeah, there you go. Whatever it is. You've seen fads in education.
Mr. Parker, thank you
Yes,
so much for
thank
being
you.
on the show.
Thank you.
How do we find out? You have a website and everything.
Yes, our site is thejusticefoundation.org. We have a parents' rights document there that you can sign, even if your child's in public school, and it tells you things that you'd like to have done or not done with respect to your child's education. You can get that on our website, and we have materials about public education also.
All right. Well, thank you, and I'll see you next time on God Family Politics. I'm your host, Dr. Tyra Hodge, and thank you for joining in and share this out. Thanks.
You're a magnificent interviewer.
Oh, thank you.
Just put me at ease.
Well, that was